Before we begin, I'd like to ask you a simple question. If your entire life could be placed inside a single suitcase, what would you choose to carry? The memories that still make you smile? The regrets you've never spoken aloud? Or the quiet moments you didn't realize would become the ones you missed the most? Tonight, I'd like to invite you aboard an old train that appears only at sunset. A journey where every station holds a forgotten piece of the heart, and every mile gently reminds us that growing older is not about losing our lives, but finally learning how to see them. This is the last train before sunset. The last train before sunset. There are stations that exist on maps, and then there are stations that seem to exist only when a person has lived long enough to notice them. No one remembered exactly when the little station had been built. Its wooden beams had silvered beneath decades of rain, and ivy climbed its stone walls with the quiet patience of something that had never been in a hurry. The paint on the station sign had faded until only a few letters remained, as though time itself had grown tired of reading names. Most travelers passed it without a second glance. Yet every evening, just before sunset, one train still stopped there. Always on time. Never early. Never late. The station master used to say that clocks measured hours, but trains measured lives. No one knew whether he meant it as wisdom or simply as something an old man says after watching too many departures. Either way, people remembered the sentence long after they forgot his face. The evening air carried the scent of pine, iron, and rain that had fallen somewhere beyond the hills hours before. A breeze wandered through the empty platform, nudging a forgotten newspaper along the worn wooden boards before letting it settle again. Somewhere in the distance, a bell rang once. Not loudly, just enough to remind the waiting passengers that time had begun moving again. An old man sat alone on the farthest bench. His coat was neatly buttoned despite the mild weather. Beside him rested a weathered brown suitcase, its leather softened by decades of careful hands. Tiny scratches covered its surface like lines written in a language only years could understand. He rested one hand lightly upon it, not to keep it from being stolen, almost as if he were reassuring an old companion. Every few minutes his fingers absent-mindedly traced the worn brass handle. The habit had become so natural that he no longer noticed he was doing it. Across the platform, people waited in the ordinary ways people always do. A young mother tied her daughter's scarf for the third time. A businessman frowned at a watch that seemed determined not to move any faster. Two teenagers laughed over something on a phone before the moment dissolved into comfortable silence. Each carried luggage of one kind or another. Some held suitcases. Some carried backpacks. Some carried only themselves. The old man wondered, not for the first time, whether the heaviest things people brought to a station were the ones no one else could see. A child wandered away from his parents and stopped in front of the old man. He couldn't have been older than 7. He looked at the suitcase with the fearless curiosity only children seem to possess. "Is it heavy?" The old man smiled. "It used to be." The boy tilted his head. "What changed?" For a moment, the old man looked toward the tracks stretching westward until they disappeared beneath the evening light. "I learned the difference," he said softly, "between carrying something and refusing to let it go." The child considered the answer with great seriousness. Then, after a thoughtful pause, he asked the question adults almost never dare to ask. "What's inside?" The old man looked down at the suitcase. His fingers rested on the brass latches. He could have opened it. He could have shown the boy everything. Or perhaps, nothing at all. Instead, he smiled. "I'm still finding out." The child accepted the answer as though it were perfectly reasonable. Children often understand mysteries better than adults. His mother called his name from farther down the platform. He waved goodbye before running back without another question. The old man watched him go until the laughter disappeared into the growing hush of evening. The station clock ticked above the platform. Its hands moved with quiet certainty. It had witnessed reunions, farewells, promises, and regrets. It never hurried any of them. A gust of wind swept beneath the bench. The old man noticed a single maple leaf drifting across the platform before coming to rest beside his shoe. He bent slowly to pick it up. Its edges had already begun to curl. Summer had not disappeared all at once. It had simply become autumn one gentle day at a time. He slipped the leaf into his coat pocket without quite knowing why. Some things asked to be remembered before they asked to be understood. Far down the tracks, almost beyond sight, a low whistle echoed across the valley. Not loud enough to interrupt conversation, only loud enough to invite attention. Every sound on the platform seemed to pause for the space of a single breath. The businessman lowered his watch. The young mother gathered her daughter's hand. The woman with the novel stood and brushed invisible dust from her coat. Even the birds resting along the telegraph wires lifted their heads toward the western hills. The old man closed his eyes. The whistle sounded different every year. When he was young, it had sounded like adventure. Later, it became ambition, then responsibility. After that, loss. Tonight, it sounded almost like recognition, as though someone, somewhere beyond the horizon, already knew his name without ever needing to speak it. The train emerged slowly from the amber light, not with the force of modern engines, but with the quiet confidence of something that had traveled the same path for longer than memory could measure. Its polished windows reflected the sky rather than the people waiting to board. For a fleeting moment, the old man caught his own reflection in the glass. He searched instinctively for the face he remembered carrying through most of his life. Instead, he found another, older, gentler, less certain of many things, and strangely more at peace because of it. The train came to a smooth stop. The doors opened without haste. No announcement followed. No urgency filled the air. Only the faint scent of cedar wood drifting from within the carriage. The conductor stepped onto the platform. He greeted each passenger with the same quiet nod, as though welcoming them home rather than sending them away. When he reached the old man, his eyes lingered for just a heartbeat on the weathered suitcase. Then he smiled. "Good evening." The old man returned the smile. "Good evening." Neither man asked where the other was going. Some journeys begin long before anyone boards a train. The old man placed one hand upon the brass handle. For reasons he could not explain, it felt lighter than it had that morning. Not because anything had been removed, but because something inside him had shifted before the journey had even begun. He stepped toward the open door. Behind him, the station bell rang once more. Ahead of him, warm light spilled quietly across the polished wooden floor of the carriage. For the briefest moment, he stood between the platform and the train, between everything he had carried and everything he had yet to understand. Then, without looking back, he stepped aboard. The carriage welcomed him with the kind of silence that belongs only to old places. Not empty silence, lived in silence. The polished cedar walls carried the warmth of countless evenings. Brass fixtures caught the fading sunlight without demanding attention. Every seat bore the faint marks of hands, coats, and years that had quietly passed through. Nothing inside looked new. Nothing looked forgotten. The old man paused in the aisle before choosing a seat beside the window. Not because it offered the best view, but because, throughout his life, windows had always seemed to ask better questions than mirrors. He rested the suitcase beside his legs. For the first time since arriving at the station, he let go of the handle completely. The train shuddered once, softly, then began to move. Outside, the platform drifted away so slowly that it almost felt as though the world, rather than the train, had chosen to continue without them. The station master stood alone beneath the weathered clock. He raised 2 fingers in a quiet farewell. Whether it was meant for the passengers or for time itself, no one could have said. Within moments, the station disappeared behind a curve of pine trees. It did not feel as though they had left a place. It felt as though they had crossed an invisible threshold. The rhythm of the wheels settled into a steady conversation with the rails. Not loud enough to interrupt thought, only steady enough to accompany it. The old man leaned his head lightly against the window. Fields unfolded beside the tracks. Golden grass bent beneath the evening breeze. Farmhouses rested among distant orchards where smoke rose lazily from stone chimneys. Children chased one another across open meadows, their laughter too far away to hear, yet somehow visible in the way they ran. The world outside seemed untouched by urgency. How strange, he thought. Life had always looked calmer from a moving train than it ever had while standing still inside it. A gentle knock interrupted his thoughts. "May I?" The voice belonged to an elderly woman standing beside his seat. She carried no suitcase, only a small woven basket resting against her arm. Her silver hair had been gathered into a loose braid, and her eyes held the quiet brightness of someone who had spent many years noticing small things. Of course, she settled into the seat across from him. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. The silence never became awkward. Some people spend years learning how to fill silence. Others spend years learning how not to disturb it. At last, she smiled. "First journey." The old man chuckled. "It feels more like my last." She laughed, not loudly, but with the warmth of someone who had stopped arguing with life's ironies. They usually turn out to be the same journey. He looked at her, uncertain whether she was joking. She offered no explanation. Instead, she gazed out the window, where the last of the afternoon light slipped across the fields like liquid gold. The conductor moved quietly through the carriage. He never checked tickets. He never asked for names. He simply paused beside each passenger for a moment, offering a small nod before continuing on. When he reached the old man, his eyes fell once again upon the weathered suitcase. "You've carried that one for a long time." "I suppose I have. It must contain something valuable." The old man glanced downward. "I used to think so." The conductor's smile barely changed. "Most people do." He continued down the aisle before another question could be asked. The old man watched him disappear through the connecting door. There was something peculiar about the man. He never seemed to arrive from anywhere, nor leave for anywhere else. He simply appeared whenever someone had begun asking themselves the right question. Outside, the landscape shifted almost imperceptibly. The orchards gave way to rivers. The rivers widened into quiet lakes that reflected the sky with perfect patience. Clouds drifted across the water like thoughts that no longer needed answers. The old man remembered another train, another window, another evening. He had been 23. His suitcase had been new then. Its leather shone proudly beneath the station lights. Inside had been neatly folded shirts, a pocket watch from his father, and enough ambition to fill 3 lifetimes. He had believed the world waited just beyond the next station. He smiled at the memory. Youth has a beautiful habit of mistaking distance for destiny. The reflection in the window trembled gently with the movement of the train. For a heartbeat, the younger man's face seemed to overlap his own. Then it was gone. Not lost, simply carried onward by time. A soft whistle echoed somewhere ahead. The old man noticed it immediately. At the station, it had sounded like recognition. Now, it sounded like invitation. Not a call to arrive somewhere, a call to pay attention. The elderly woman across from him opened her basket. Inside lay nothing more than a loaf of fresh bread, 2 apples, and a small thermos. She broke the bread in half without ceremony. "Would you like some?" He hesitated. "I didn't bring anything to offer in return." She smiled as though she had heard that answer countless times before. The oldest mistake people make is believing every gift creates a debt. She placed half the loaf in his hands anyway. The bread was still warm. Steam curled upward between them. For reasons he could not explain, the old man's eyes lingered on it longer than they should have. He could not remember the last meal that had been shared without expectation, without conversation, without someone glancing at a clock. They ate quietly while the countryside drifted past. The bread tasted ordinary, which, somehow, made it unforgettable. Evening settled more deeply over the land. The first lamps flickered to life inside distant cottages, one by one, like stars deciding to bloom upon the earth before appearing in the sky. The old man rested both hands upon the suitcase once more. This time, not to hold on, simply to feel its familiar presence. It occurred to him that he had spent most of his life believing this suitcase had carried his memories. Perhaps, he wondered, it had been the other way around. Perhaps memories had been carrying him all along. Outside the window, the last light of day lingered upon the horizon. Ahead, the tracks disappeared into a valley wrapped in gathering twilight. The whistle sounded again, longer this time, gentler, and somewhere deep within the steady rhythm of iron against iron. The old man felt the first quiet certainty that this journey was not asking him to remember more. It was asking him, very slowly, to begin carrying less. Darkness never arrived all at once. It gathered patiently. Blue gave way to indigo. Gold surrendered to silver. The last warmth of daylight lingered along the horizon like a promise reluctant to become memory. Inside the carriage, the lamps awakened one by one. Not bright enough to erase the evening, only gentle enough to accompany it. The passengers had grown quieter. The businessman had stopped checking his watch. The young mother now slept with her daughter's head resting against her shoulder. The woman with the novel had closed the book entirely. Even the conductor seemed to move more slowly, as though the night itself preferred not to be hurried. The train continued west. Its steady rhythm no longer sounded like wheels upon steel. It sounded like breathing. The old man rested his forehead lightly against the cool glass. At first, the window reflected only the fading countryside. Then, as darkness deepened, it began reflecting him. Not perfectly. The lines of his face dissolved into the passing landscape. His silver hair blended with distant mist. For a fleeting moment, he could not tell whether he was looking outward or inward. Perhaps, he thought, every window becomes a mirror once enough light has disappeared. His gaze drifted toward the suitcase. It sat exactly where he had placed it. Patient, faithful, waiting. How many years had it followed him? 40? 50? Long enough that he could no longer remember buying it, only carrying it. He reached down and rested both hands upon the worn leather. The brass latches were cool beneath his fingertips. He hesitated, not because he feared what was inside, because he feared what might no longer be there. Outside, somewhere beyond the darkness, the whistle sounded. Once, long, low. It no longer felt like an invitation. It sounded like permission. Very slowly, he opened the case. Inside lay only a handful of things, far fewer than he remembered. A faded photograph, a pocket watch whose hands had stopped years ago, a folded letter still sealed, a child's marble, blue as a summer sky, a small wooden toy horse with one missing wheel. Nothing more. He stared at them for a long while. Strange. He had spent decades believing his life was far too large to fit inside a single suitcase. Yet here it was, reduced not by loss, but by time's quiet honesty. He picked up the photograph first. Its edges had softened with age. The faces had faded beneath countless summers. He recognized the place immediately. A picnic beside a river. Wildflowers. A blanket spread beneath an oak tree. Someone had laughed just before the shutter clicked. He remembered that much. He searched each face carefully. One, then another, then another. A long silence followed. He frowned. He knew these people. He loved these people. Yet, he could no longer remember one woman's face. Not clearly. He closed his eyes. He tried again. The curve of her smile. Nothing. The color of her eyes. Nothing. The sound of her laughter. It came instantly. Bright. Unrestrained. Alive enough to fill the carriage. His own lips curved before he realized they had. Tears gathered quietly at the corners of his eyes. Not because memory had failed him, because love had chosen a different way to remain. Perhaps faces belong to time. But laughter belongs to the heart. He placed the photograph gently back into the suitcase. Next came the pocket watch. The silver case opened with a familiar click. The hands rested at 5:17. They had not moved for years. His father had carried this watch every day until the spring he died. "Keep it," his father had once said. "Not so you'll know the hour. So you'll remember that no clock has ever been able to measure a good life." When he was young, he had dismissed the words as something old men liked to say. Back then, every minute felt like currency. Every delay felt like theft. Every ambition demanded another hour. He smiled sadly. How long it had taken to understand that time had never been asking him to spend it wisely, only to be present while it was being given. He closed the watch. Its hands remained still. For the first time, they no longer seemed broken. Only the letter remained untouched. Its paper had yellowed with age. His own handwriting crossed the front. But there was no address, no stamp, no name, only 2 words. For when ready, he stared at them. His thumb rested beneath the brittle seal. One small movement, and decades of silence would open. The whistle echoed again. Closer now. The carriage seemed to hold its breath with him. The elderly woman across the aisle looked up from the window. She did not ask what the letter contained. She simply said, almost to herself, "Some doors open with courage." A pause, and some with kindness. The old man lowered his eyes. Very carefully, he returned the unopened letter to the suitcase. Not because he lacked courage. Because, for the first time, he understood they were not the same thing. Some words had already finished their work without ever being read. He closed the suitcase. The brass latches clicked softly. The sound was so small that no one else seemed to notice. Yet something inside him had changed. Not dramatically, not all at once. More like the first leaf letting go of a branch after holding through an entire season. Outside, the moon rose above the dark hills. Its pale light drifted across the window. The reflection staring back at him seemed lighter now. Not younger, not happier, simply less crowded. The train rolled steadily into the night. Far ahead, another whistle floated through the darkness. This time, it sounded less like the train calling to the tracks, and more like life, gently asking one final question. If memory no longer needs to be carried, what, then, is still worth holding? Sometime after midnight, the train entered a valley where the world seemed to forget its own edges. Moonlight rested upon the fields like a thin veil of silver. The trees no longer rushed past the windows. They drifted, softly, almost as if the night itself had slowed the train out of respect for those who still carried unfinished thoughts. Inside the carriage, no one was sleeping deeply. Some passengers rested with their eyes closed. Others watched the darkness beyond the glass. There are nights when people sleep because they are tired, and there are nights when the heart quietly asks to remain awake. This was the second kind. The old man had stopped counting the stations. Some had been little more than lonely platforms beneath a single lantern. Others had glowed with warm cafes, laughter, and people embracing before the whistle called them apart again. Each appeared, each disappeared. None asked to be remembered. He wondered how many places in his own life had been exactly the same. Moments that had arrived without fanfare, only to become the ones he missed the most. The conductor appeared beside his seat without a sound. He carried 2 cups of tea. Steam curled gently between them. "I thought you might still be awake." The old man accepted the cup with quiet gratitude. Neither of them drank immediately. Instead, they watched the moon slide across the window. After a long silence, the conductor asked, "Do you remember your happiest day?" The question arrived so unexpectedly that the old man almost laughed. Of course he remembered, or at least, he believed he did. His wedding, the birth of his daughter, the day he opened his little bookshop, the afternoon his grandson fell asleep on his shoulder. So many moments stepped forward at once that none could claim first place. "I don't know," he admitted. "I used to." The conductor nodded, as though uncertainty had been the answer he expected. And your saddest day? This time the answer came more quickly. He remembered funerals, hospital rooms, arguments that lasted only minutes but echoed for years, doors that closed too hard, words spoken too quickly, words never spoken at all. He lowered his eyes into the tea. The surface trembled with the movement of the train. Then the conductor asked the question that remained between them long after the others had faded. What day did you overlook? The old man looked up. I'm sorry. The ordinary day, the conductor said softly. The one that never asked to be remembered. The question settled over the table between them. Not heavily, patiently. The old man searched his memory. At first, nothing came. Then, without warning, a morning appeared. Nothing remarkable had happened. He had been 39. His daughter had asked if he could walk her to school. He had smiled apologetically. I'm late. She had nodded. She understood. Children always seem to understand more than they should. He kissed the top of her head. Promised. Tomorrow. He remembered grabbing his briefcase. Remembered checking his watch. Remembered hurrying toward the station. He could not remember what meeting had been so important. He could not remember the contract, or the client, or whether he had succeeded. But he remembered one thing with painful clarity: the sound of the front door closing behind him. It had taken less than 2 seconds. Yet somehow, it had echoed for 30 years. He closed his eyes. Another memory followed. His wife had once paused beside him while he was reading. Come outside. For what? The sunset. I'll catch the next one. She had smiled. You always think there will be another. He had laughed. He remembered laughing. He did not remember going outside. The tea had grown cold. Neither man noticed. The conductor looked out at the passing darkness. We spend our youth chasing extraordinary moments. He spoke so quietly that it almost sounded like the train itself. And we spend the rest of our lives wishing we had noticed the ordinary ones. No explanation followed. None was needed. The whistle echoed through the valley. Not distant this time. Close. Its sound lingered longer than before. The old man realized something that left him utterly still. The whistle had never been calling the train. It had been calling attention. Every time it sounded, life had been asking the same question. Are you here? Not yesterday. Not tomorrow. Here. His eyes drifted toward the window once more. The glass reflected his face. And beyond it, countless stars. He searched for the young man he once believed himself to be. The ambitious one. The hurried one. The man who measured love in promises of tomorrow. Instead, he saw someone else. An old traveler. A little slower. A little quieter. Finally learning that a life is not shaped by the days we remember most, but by the ordinary afternoons we almost failed to notice. A single tear found its way down his cheek. He did not wipe it away. Some tears are not signs of sorrow. They are the heart's way of making room. The conductor stood. He gathered the empty cups. Before leaving, he rested one hand lightly on the old man's weathered suitcase. You've carried it faithfully. The old man nodded. I know. The conductor smiled. I wonder. He paused just long enough for the question to become something larger than words. Whether it still belongs to you. Then he walked quietly toward the next carriage. The old man remained by the window. His hand rested upon the suitcase. For the first time since the journey began, it no longer felt lighter. It felt ready. Outside, the moon slipped behind a bank of clouds. The carriage fell briefly into darkness. And somewhere ahead, just beyond the reach of memory, the whistle sounded once again. No one announced the final station. The train simply began to slow, so gently that the change was first noticed not by the passengers, but by the silence. The rhythm beneath the carriage softened. The familiar conversation between wheel and rail became slower, deeper, until each turn seemed to linger just a little longer before yielding to the next. Outside the window, dawn had not yet arrived, nor had the night completely departed. The world rested in that fragile hour when darkness no longer resists the light, and light has not yet claimed the sky. The old man watched the horizon without searching for anything. For the first time since boarding the train, he felt no need to understand where he was. It was enough to be there. Around him, the carriage stirred. The young mother gently woke her daughter. The businessman folded his newspaper without ever opening it. The woman with the maple leaf closed her eyes for a brief moment, as though thanking the journey for something no one else had witnessed. The elderly woman with the basket smiled across the aisle. Neither of them spoke. Some goodbyes are diminished by words. The conductor appeared one last time. His uniform looked exactly as it had the evening before. Only now, in the quiet light before sunrise, the lines around his eyes seemed easier to notice. He stopped beside the old man's seat. "I hope you found what you were looking for." The old man smiled. "I spent most of my life looking." A pause. "I think this journey taught me how to stop." The conductor's expression remained gentle. "And how does that feel?" The old man considered the question. "It feels." He searched for a word large enough to hold an entire lifetime. "Lighter." The conductor nodded. "As it should." The whistle echoed one final time. Not ahead of them. Not behind them. It seemed to come from everywhere at once. The old man listened carefully. When he was young, it had sounded like possibility. Later, it had become ambition. Then responsibility. Then regret. Then remembrance. Now, it sounded like gratitude. Not because life had been easy, but because it had been given. The train came to a complete stop. The doors opened without a sound. Beyond them stretched a quiet platform wrapped in the first pale colors of morning. There was no grand station, no crowd, no destination board, only a narrow path disappearing into a meadow washed with dew. The old man stood. His knees complained softly. He smiled at them. They've earned the right. Slowly, he reached for the suitcase. His fingers closed around the worn brass handle. Then, they relaxed. He remained standing beside it for a long moment. The conductor waited without speaking. At last, the old man looked down at the leather that had traveled beside him through nearly every season of his life. How many times had he believed it contained his identity, his accomplishments, his failures, his grief, his love, his memories? He understood now that it had never carried any of those things. They had always lived somewhere no suitcase could ever reach. He rested his hand gently upon the lid. Not to hold on. To say thank you. "I think," he whispered. "You've carried enough." Whether he was speaking to the suitcase or to himself, even he could no longer tell. He stepped away. One pace, then another. The suitcase remained exactly where it was. No miracle happened. No mysterious light escaped through the seams. It was simply an old suitcase resting beside an empty seat. Ordinary, almost invisible. Just another object waiting for the next traveler to decide what it meant. And somehow, that was far more beautiful than any miracle could have been. The conductor lifted the suitcase with one hand. It surprised him, not because it had become lighter, but because it weighed exactly what an old, empty suitcase should. He smiled quietly. The old man had been right. The weight had never belonged to leather. The old traveler stepped onto the platform. The morning air carried the scent of wet grass and cedar. Birdsong drifted through the stillness. Somewhere beyond the meadow, water moved over unseen stones. Life had already begun another ordinary day. He paused only once, not to look back, but to listen. The whistle sounded again, faint now, almost carried away by the wind. This time he understood. The train had never been asking anyone to outrun time. It had only been asking them to stay awake while time passed. He began walking along the narrow path. The suitcase remained behind. So did the train. So did the stations, the schedules, the clocks, the promises of one day. Each step felt strangely familiar, as though he had been walking toward this quiet morning all his life without knowing its name. The meadow opened before him. Wildflowers bent beneath the breeze. Sunlight slipped slowly over the hills. Nothing extraordinary happened. No revelation split the sky. No voice answered the questions he had carried for decades. Instead, The world continued exactly as it always had. Birds flew, grass swayed, morning arrived, and for the first time, he did not mistake the ordinary for something to hurry past. He walked more slowly, not because age demanded it, because wonder did. Far behind him, the train eased forward once more. Its wheels found the rails with the quiet confidence of countless journeys still waiting to begin. Somewhere inside, another traveler would soon notice the weathered brown suitcase beside an empty seat. Perhaps they would wonder who had left it there. Perhaps they would open it. Perhaps they would not. It no longer mattered. Every traveler boards carrying something. Every traveler leaves understanding something different. The train would never teach the same lesson twice. It simply kept moving, patiently, faithfully, toward every soul still learning that peace is not found at the end of the journey, but in finally seeing the life that has been beside us all along. Before your next station, perhaps, by now, you've realized that this story was never really about a train. Or perhaps, it was, because every life follows tracks we never fully see. We board without knowing how many stations lie ahead. We wave goodbye without realizing which farewell will be our last. We spend years believing the destination is what matters most, only to discover that our lives were quietly unfolding between departures all along. Maybe you've carried a suitcase of your own, not one stitched from leather and brass, but from old disappointments, unfinished conversations, expectations you inherited, dreams you outgrew, or versions of yourself you've been afraid to leave behind. Perhaps you've been holding it for so long that you've forgotten it was ever heavy. Perhaps you've mistaken its weight for who you are. If so, you are not alone. Every traveler begins that way. There is something curious about sunsets. People often call them endings. Yet the sun never thinks of itself as ending. It simply continues shining somewhere beyond our horizon. Perhaps our lives are much the same. Youth does not disappear. It becomes memory. Strength does not vanish. It becomes gentleness. Ambition does not die. It becomes understanding. And love does what it has always done. It keeps traveling long after those who first carried it have stepped off the train. If this journey has offered you anything, I hope it is not another lesson to remember. There are already enough lessons in the world. I hope it has offered you a quieter way of seeing. The next time someone asks you to slow down, perhaps you will. The next time laughter fills an ordinary afternoon, perhaps you will stay a little longer before reaching for your phone. The next time the evening sky paints itself without asking for your attention, perhaps you'll look up. Not because moments like these last forever, but because they never do. One day, each of us will step onto a platform we cannot postpone. When that day comes, I hope we will not ask, "Did I stay young long enough?" Or, "Did the world remember my name?" I hope we ask something far simpler. Was I truly here? Did I notice the people who loved me? Did I speak the words that mattered while there was still time? Did I forgive before silence became permanent? Did I let wonder interrupt my hurry? Did I live enough ordinary days that, together, they became an extraordinary life? Perhaps those are the only questions that have ever mattered. And if, tomorrow morning, you happen to hear the distant whistle of a passing train, pause for just a moment. Listen, not because the train is calling you, but because life still is. It has been calling all along, not toward a different destination, not toward another version of yourself, simply toward this breath, this morning, this conversation, this person beside you, this fleeting, beautiful day that asks for nothing more than your presence. The last train before sunset is not waiting somewhere beyond the horizon. It arrives every morning you wake. Every ordinary afternoon you almost rush through. Every evening you are given one more chance to say, "I'm here." So travel gently. Carry only what helps you love. Leave room for wonder. And when your next station comes, step forward without fear. Not because the journey is ending, but because, at last, you have learned how to ride it. Some stories end when the train reaches its final station. This one ends the moment you look up from these words and begin noticing the journey that has already been waiting for you. Thank you for taking this journey with me. If this story stayed with you, if it reminded you of someone you love, a memory you've been carrying, or simply encouraged you to slow down and appreciate the life unfolding around you, then I'm truly grateful we shared this moment together. If you enjoyed this story, please consider leaving a like and sharing it with someone who might need these words today. You never know how a simple story can become the quiet light someone else has been searching for. And if you'd like to continue traveling these quiet paths of wisdom, reflection, and healing, I invite you to subscribe and join us for the next journey. Until we meet again, take care of your heart, cherish the ordinary moments, and remember, life is not measured by how fast we reach the next station, but by how deeply we experience the journey between them. Thank you for listening. Until our paths cross again, travel gently.